We keep hearing all this talk about the Toronto Blue Jays needing to sign another starting pitcher. They're looking at it, but do they really need another starting pitcher?
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The college football playoff is here, and you don't want to miss a moment of the action. The college football playoff, presented by Allstate, begins with 4 first-round games December 20th and 21st on ESPN, ABC, TNT, and Max. As always, I'm Braden Iwasko. He's Carter First. You can find us on Twitter, Braden5Iwasko. Carter First, too, as well on Instagram and TikTok at Locked On Blue Jays. If you're new here to YouTube or you're listening anywhere else, we've sort of made YouTube the hub here of Locked On Blue Jays. Make sure you guys hit the subscribe button. It really does help us out a ton, and you might as well. It's free. You get podcasts, videos, shorts, anything pretty much. It keeps you updated with everything. So you might as well hit the subscribe button. Please do so. We're trying to reach 2,000 by the end of the year. We'll see if we can do it. We're right there. We're close enough. Let's see if you guys can bring it. The more of you, the better. The more Jays fans, complaining and winning together. Hopefully, winning together is the more fun. The comments you guys bring are fantastic. Big thanks. Shout out to you guys as well. Join the Discord down in the description. I have now sent Carter a new link, so hopefully that one will work. Sorry to some of you that tried to join. We will get that figured out for you. Hopefully the new one works. Let us know if it doesn't. Some stuff to get into today. We have been not doing a player profile for a while because there was a mass amount of news. So now we're here. We got Yariel Rodriguez. We're going to do his, but first, let's talk about the state of the starting pitching in general. Who are the 5? Because it needs to be talked about. A lot of talk right now about should the Blue Jays go out and sign Corbin Burns? Should they sign Max Fried? Where were their heads at in all of this? We've heard rumors. We've heard rumblings. What are they going to do and what should they do? We'll talk about all that today as well. Bit of MLB news that we're going to get into. Some Jays news, some just in totality MLB news. So Carter, let's kick things off. Let's start the conversation here. Who are the Blue Jays starting 5 pitchers going into 2025 as of right now?
I think if you were going to look at any betting site anywhere, if you're going to look at FanDuel, obviously, this is probably what they'd have for you. They'd probably have Kevin Gausman, Jose Berrios, Chris Bassitt as the starting 3, and then they would have Bowden Francis and then Yariel Rodriguez, same thing as they had last season. And you might ask why right now. Why is there so much talk about starting pitching? Why are the Toronto Blue Jays in on starting pitching when you have those same 5 pitchers coming back? And it's more so for the future, which is a little bit ironic with how Ross Atkins has said, we're not really going to look for the future. We're not going to account for that much. We're focused on 2025, winning now, and we're throwing all emergency plans kind of out the window. And then you look at starting pitching. The only reason that they would make a move in starting pitching is for the future. Because right now, when you look at 2025, again, there is pieces that can help. Obviously, you got Corbin Burns that we've talked about in this podcast. Definitely help starting pitching right now. But when you have an offense like this, you have a bullpen like this, you wouldn't think starting pitching would be your first thing. But like I said, it's for the future. You look at some of our pitchers under contract. When you talk about Kevin Gausman, Jose Berrios, and Chris Bassitt. Chris Bassitt is done at the end of 2025. Jose Berrios is an opt-out at the end of 2026. Might use that, especially with the direction the Toronto Blue Jays may be going at that moment. And then obviously Kevin Gausman, 2 or more years as well. So looking at starting pitching, the reason that they could be doing this is just for the future, especially if you're looking at a top end rotation guy. They were in on Max Fried. They were looking to give him 6, 7, maybe even 8 years as well. So that's what it would be to have a ace be here, or at least a number 2 pitcher, maybe even a number 3 pitcher. You could say have any sort of pitching here that has established their career in the major leagues for an extended period of time. So that's why we've seen Corbin Burns to the Nick Pavettas. We've seen maybe Jack Flaherty's will start coming down the wire as we get farther and farther into free agency. But right now, we'll focus on the 5 that are with the Toronto Blue Jays. I think the first 3, they're going to be there no matter what in some capacity. Maybe they won't be 1, 2, 3 like that, but they are going to be in your starting rotation for next season. Bowden Francis, a little bit of a wild card here. It's going to be the one that you could have at even all the way up to your number 2 guy, or maybe who knows, you could have a little bit of a fluke at the end of last season. I don't think that's what it is, but some fans may be thinking that it was a little bit lucky what Bowden Francis did at the end of the season, and you might not have him in your starting 5. So, Braden, I'm going to throw it back over to you before I kind of break down how I feel about the pitchers on the Toronto Blue Jays right now. If you had to go 1 through 5 right now, who are you putting in those starting 5 for the Toronto Blue Jays?
Yeah, you know what? Every season, it bugs me that Kevin Gausman isn't the opening day starter. I don't know why. He's not. I don't know why I feel like that. I feel like he's the ace. He should be given the opening day start. Obviously, he's the number one, most consistent. You know what you're going to get out of him. A little bit of a down year last year, but still very good. I don't think it was hard to say because the team was so bad behind him. Jose Berrios has got to be your number two. I think as much as I do want to put Chris Bassitt at your number three, I think he's a very consistent guy as well. But he's known to load the bases, get guys in, and not give up a ton of runs, but give up a few runs throughout the game. He's not going to go out there and pitch you shutdown games. He's not going to go out there and pitch you scoreless games the whole time. Bowden Francis looked fantastic. My little bit of worry with Bowden Francis going into this season is what were teams able to pick up on at the end of last year? And will they be able to use that now moving forward? And I think the more appearances he has, I really hope this isn't the case, but it could be, is the Davis Schneider effect, where the more teams see you, the more they understand. They got to see a lot more to Bowden Francis when he started to become a starter late into last year. So I'm a little bit concerned about that. And Yariel Rodriguez, this is a guy that me and you talked about 2 years, at the beginning of last year. We said, we're probably not going to see this guy be a full-fledged starter for another 2 seasons. Then the Jays get thrown into this situation where they have to use him and make him become a starter. They were going to, okay, maybe we'll just use him in the bullpen. No, okay, now we need him as a starter. We'll get him going already. I think that this is way too early to judge this guy. I think he's got the stuff. He's got the skill. It's just finding a comfortability and finding his place within the league. So I don't know if that's going to be this year. I think it could be that the third year of that contract. So not this year, but next year. I think that's when we'll start to see Yariel Rodriguez become sort of into his own. So I'm a little bit concerned with the back end of this starting five. But then again, Carter, I know we're going to talk about this a little bit more, but we got to get into the Alek Manoah effect of it all as well. Alek Manoah will come back. He's already started throwing. He will be back, and that's probably going to push Yariel Rodriguez out into the bullpen, which we will talk about more in the second segment, but a little bit more on Alek Manoah. Alek Manoah, I said last year, was going to come back and have a comeback season and be a dog. And you know what? He was a dog when he wasn't hurt. Then he gets hurt and goes down. I think this season is completely the comeback for Alek Manoah. I am convinced. I think him and Bo Bichette are two guys that if you had to pick comeback player of the year, watch those two players. I think it is going to be absolutely electric. And Alek Manoah could very well be your second pitcher next season.
You've seen what Alek Manoah can do. You've seen what his highest points are. Top 3 finish in Cy Young voting, and he was, I think, 22 at the time. That was in the year 2022, obviously, when Alek Manoah was doing those Alek Manoah things. But he came back, 2023, obviously, horrendous year. That's a year to forget for Alek Manoah. Came back. Nobody was really, people were writing him off, for sure. I think we were a little bit higher on Alek Manoah than a lot of other podcasts, a lot of the fans were, because we saw how good Alek Manoah could be. But I think it's just the ego got to him. Pressure is something you only put in your tires. As soon as that happened, that quote came out, famously, obviously known for the Alek Manoah playoff game that he did throw. Looked like the pressure got to him there a little bit. Obviously, you see him throwing, coming off of Tommy John, will not be ready at the start of the season. So that's why those 5 right now you have probably going to be your starting 5, albeit could be a free agent signing to this rotation. But other guys that could have some impact on this rotation as well. Jake Bloss, obviously we talked about on this podcast, from the Houston Astros. I think right now, with all the talks about being in on starting pitching, and just with Alek Manoah being there, with Bowden Francis, Yariel Rodriguez, all these names, I don't think they want to throw Jake Bloss next season. I think they want to keep him in AAA for as long as they can. Let him develop. Let him keep building up that confidence. And then for 2026, you want Jake Bloss, probably with Chris Bassitt leaving, to take over that role. So for me, top 5, I'll get into mine. I think you got to give it to Kevin Gausman. You got to, again, bounce back season. Not the worst things you've seen from Kevin Gausman, but for a typical Kevin Gausman season, a little bit worse, obviously, than his prototypical years. Strikeout rate a little bit down. Splitter wasn't as good as you wanted it to be in 2024. Just, again, some very brief stats on Kevin Gausman last season: 3.83 ERA, 181 innings pitch, 162 strikeouts, 1.22 WHIP. Not exactly what you want to see from Kevin Gausman, but I see a bounce back coming. Jose Berrios will put it 2. This one's pretty self-explanatory. I think he's just going to eat innings. He's going to be your guy that will go out 6 innings, probably give up that one long ball, give it up. You're here 2 runs. You move on with Jose Berrios. This isn't necessarily a shot at Chris Bassitt. I don't think Chris Bassett's going to be bad next year. I think Bowden Francis is going to take that another step. I've been a big Bowden Francis guy. I think he could be pushing Jose Berrios out of that number 2 spot as well. That's how good I think Bowden Francis is going to be this upcoming season. I'm very high on Bowden Francis. He kind of put it together, obviously being up in AAA with the Major League team for a bit, down to AAA, just being all up and down systems until around July. And you see Bowden Francis, honestly, down the stretch, down the last 3 months of the season, one of the best pitchers in all of baseball. So I have Bowden Francis pretty high on my list. Then I would have Chris Bassitt at 4. I think Alek Manoah does come back. When he does come back, he takes that 5th spot. Maybe, again, can move up to 4, can move up to 3. We'll see what will happen with that. So then that leaves Yariel Rodriguez as kind of your odd man out. I see him as being the number 5 starter going into the season. Again, albeit there might be another free agency signing. Again, that would mean, I guess, in this situation, I don't know who you throw to the wayside here if you're making another signing, if it's not Yariel Rodriguez. When Alek Manoah comes back, that's why I don't really understand this whole starting pitching saga that the Toronto Blue Jays are in. Say, even if you want to throw Yariel Rodriguez back to the bullpen, for sure that makes sense to start out. But when you have Alek Manoah come back, you'll have too many cooks in the kitchen. Again, you can't, there's not really a problem with having that many starting pitchers. You can't have too many pitchers, obviously, with injuries, things like that, to come over a full 162 games in an MLB season. But when we talk about needs on this baseball team, there are so many other glaring needs that should be addressed rather than this starting pitching. It just makes me believe, and at least me to believe, that this front office isn't necessarily that high on the starting pitching for 2025.
Yeah, it shows a little bit of concern, I think. And that's a little bit scary because this was the best part of your baseball team in 2024. Now, if you're looking ahead to 2025, me and you're right. We sit here and we think, wow, why are they upgrading this? Why not go out and just grab a left fielder like we always talk about, and maybe a third baseman or another guy for the bullpen. I think Yariel Rodriguez gets pushed the pen either way, which we will talk about more in segment 2. But where does that leave Bowden Francis or Chris Bassitt? Does that open them up for a trade? Maybe, but is it the most needed thing right now? And I think that's what I end up asking myself is why? Why are they doing this? Why put your time and energy into a starting pitcher when there are bigger moves to be made? I just don't really understand. And let me know how you guys feel as well. Are you guys in on the starting pitching, them going and get another guy, another expensive guy from free agency? Or do you think that this is just stupid and they should sort of allocate their money elsewhere? Let us know what you guys have to think about this as well, because me and Carter, we go back and forth. I don't know, Carter. Let's end it here. Before we get to
I got one more thing after we do head into continue on, but I got one more thing after.
How do you stand? Where do you stand? Yay or nay? There's no in between. If you choose yes or no to get another starting pitcher from free agency, are you a yes or are you a no?
Again, this all comes down to the big overall arching thing is that how many signings, how many transactions are the Toronto Blue Jays going to make this offseason? If it's starting pitching over everything else, absolutely not. Not going to go with starting pitching. But this might be a reason why they are looking to target starting pitching this free agency. We look at what our biggest strength was in 2023. Glaringly obvious, it was the bullpen. The bullpen was unbelievable in 2023. They do absolutely nothing to revamp that bullpen. You think, we run it back the same bullpen. Again, starting pitching is different than the bullpen, but you run that same thing back and look what happens. Tim Meza just completely falls on his face. Erik Swanson injuries, Jordan Romano injuries, bunch of things don't go well, and your bullpen is one of the worst things I've ever seen in a very long time watching Toronto Blue Jays baseball. Starting pitchers, you expect Kevin Gausman to completely fall off a cliff. Probably not. Chris Bassitt and Jose Berrios, these guys, again, have longer tenures. Bowden Francis, that could be a question mark. That could be a guy that they're not completely sold on. That might be a reason with Alek Manoah, obviously having that delay with Tommy John going into the season. Maybe they want to reinforce that a little bit going into the season. So I don't mind that. But if you go out and you get a guy like Corbin Burns, maybe a Jack Flaherty, who we haven't really heard about, but I could see that picking up as we get farther into free agency. You get one of these guys, of course, they're going to be in your starting rotation. It's not going to be a bad thing for your baseball team. But where does that leave Bowden Francis? How does that help his development? Alek Manoah, same thing. Yariel Rodriguez, you can make the same argument there as well. Jake Bloss. There's so many different things here and different facets to this team that if you do make this major signing, you get an ace, a top 3 rotation arm. Where does that leave your bottom of the rotation? If they're going to go out and make a signing, I'd much rather than get a guy like Nick Pivetta or, again, a guy that's maybe a 4th or 5th rotation arm. If you want that, you want those extra arms in there. You're worried about injuries. You're worried about players having down years. I wouldn't go all in on get the biggest fish of all time. And, again, that's going to help your team. I would love them to sign Corbin Burns, Anthony Santander, you name it, all these big free agents. But if we know the Toronto Blue Jays, if we know Ross Atkins, we probably get one big move this free agency. I do not want that to be on starting pitching.
Yeah, and that's where I'm at. So if right now I had to go with a yes or a no, I have to go the no because in my head, the major problem right now has to be filling that left field spot. And I don't necessarily believe that anybody can debate me on that. I don't think that you go out and get a starting pitcher, it makes your team a million times better. I think getting a left fielder power bat that can drive in runs, I think that makes your team significantly better. And I think, again, I don't know why we're the ones that have to keep talking about this and talking to you guys in the comment section about as well. We see you guys get into a little bit of, fights with each other. I don't want to say fights, but little conversations with each other in the comments as well about that left field spot and how important that is to fill and how important it is to get that extra bat to surround Vlad and Bo with. I don't know, man. This is a confusing time for me, and I think it's like we talk about every episode. This is a make or break time for this front office, this management group, and this team as a whole. So I think going out and getting that left fielder is the biggest play you can make, and it's a play that has to be made. This is Garrett Cole running to first base, a play that has to be made.
See, it's always tough talking about the Toronto Blue Jays offseason and moves that need to be made because it's tough to just look at them in a vacuum and look for the move just for that one specific move. Because we always have to think that, oh, the Blue Jays aren't going to do what everyone thinks they should do. And the glaringly obvious thing, you can't just be like, oh, that Andres Jimenez trade, that's going to work out very well because the Toronto Blue Jays look like they got the better package. Always the thought process. And what we go back to is this going to be the big trade? Is this going to be the big move of the offseason? Is this all that's going to happen? Because we've seen it time and time and time again. So these moves can be good. And again, in a vacuum, in a spotlight, when you're looking at them specifically. But we're looking at this whole offseason as in totality. And with what we've seen previously from this management, again, we're really hoping to be proved wrong here. But it seems like we really have to pick and choose our moves specifically. And with a grain of salt, you got to make sure that you're making the right move and you're paying out the right contract because not a lot of contracts get paid out in Toronto Blue Jays land.
No, you're right. You're right. And that's going to be the big question this offseason. But Carter, we got to get in and talk about Yariel Rodriguez a little bit more in depth. We said we were going to do his player profile, his player review, whatever you want to call it. It's sort of a look ahead as well. So let's do all that when we come back. We're going to take a short break, little quick minute here, and then we'll be back talking about Yariel Rodriguez before we get into some of the Toronto Blue Jays / MLB news right after that as well.
Today's episode is sponsored by SelectQuote. The World Series, the Super Bowl, the Olympics, the world's top athletes get to play in these top-level sporting events thanks to one thing, teamwork. And teamwork can also protect your family's financial legacy and your family's future. SelectQuote's licensed insurance agents are the perfect teammates when shopping for customized and affordable life insurance. They can find you the right policy to keep your family's financial legacy in your family's end zone. If you aren't winning in sports, then you are trying to set yourself up and your team up to win in the future. With SelectQuote, you get the best of both worlds. You can save now while protecting your family's financial legacy and your financial future. While other life insurance brokers offer impersonal, one-size-fits-all policies that may cost you more and cover you less, with SelectQuote, their SelectQuote life insurance agents work for you to tailor life insurance policies for your individual needs in as little as 15 minutes. Get the right life insurance for you for less at selectquote.com/locked-on. Go to selectquote.com/locked-on today to get started. That's selectquote.com/locked-on.
So, Carter, we're back talking Yariel Rodriguez, his player profile. Where did he come in our rankings?
Again, this is a little bit of a weird one for us to discuss because we made our rankings like right at the end of 2024. Obviously, if you know the MLB, you know how the offseason works. Not every single player that was on your team in 2024 or the year before will be on your team again in 2025. So we were supposed to have a couple guys come up here. Your Ryan Yarboroughs, your Genesis Cabreras. Unfortunately, both players right now, Ryan Yarborough still can come back to the Toronto Blue Jays. Genesis Cabrera is gone. We have Spencer Horwitz obviously coming up. He's gone. Jordan Romano coming up. He's also gone. So with our rankings now, it's a little bit weird with the numbers, but he was supposed to come in at number 16. So I guess we'll say that for Yariel Rodriguez. Yariel Rodriguez at the end of last season was our number 16th rated player going into this season.
Yeah, and you know what? When we talk Yariel Rodriguez, I mean, it's sort of a weird year, right? I think we have to preface everything that we're saying about him with it was a weird season. He was not supposed to play in the MLB, maybe as a bullpen role at max, but instead he gets thrown in and becomes a starter for a while. And that's a problem, right? That's not how you wanted this season to go. You wanted to give him the time to develop, and he wasn't given that. And is that a management issue? Here, I say not really, because their hand was forced. They needed to place a guy there. Yes, they could have gone another direction, most likely, but I think you wanted to give him reps, and, well, you gave him reps. So I just want to get into his stats on the season with the Toronto Blue Jays, Carter. So he went 1 win, 8 losses, with an ERA of 4.47. He pitched 86.2 innings with 85 strikeouts. Strikeouts per 9 was at 8.8, so pretty high strikeouts per 9, not bad. Walks per 9 was at 4.2, home runs per 9, 1.1, and hits per 9 at 7.7 with a whip of 1.315. So, Carter, I mean, when you look over the stats, it's not good. It's not a good season. Let's not get that confused. I'm not trying to throw any, any whatever you want to call it, place blame. But it's the place that they were put into with Yariel Rodriguez. Do I think he'll get better? Absolutely. I think year 3 of him, we're going to see a very decent or good Yariel Rodriguez. But this was not it. And some games, I will admit, were not Yariel Rodriguez's fault that they lost those games. Some games he put up decent numbers and he still got absolutely shelled because the Jays scored no runs or 1 run. And I remember those outings, Carter. We're sitting on the couch being like, oh, there goes another Yariel Rodriguez. Sort of the Yusei Kikuchi effect, if you can remember that as well. Sort of the same deal where he would get sort of screwed as well. So in my opinion, it's tough to really put a conclusion on this season of Yariel Rodriguez because I think that the expectations were very minimal. I don't think you wanted this guy in your starting rotation this season. I don't think that was the plan. But it's the hand the Toronto Blue Jays were dealt. They had a bad year. They had to make some decisions. And is it the best for his development? No. I will keep bringing it back to Davis Schneider and Ernie Clement, sort of wasting away a year, wrecking sort of some development when maybe they could have used going back to AAA and using some practice. For sure. Same with Yariel Rodriguez. I think he would have really been, it would have been great for his progression to have a season in AAA. But again, this is where we're at. So do you sort of feel the same way as me, where this is sort of a circumstantial move, not necessarily they wanted to make this move and have him pitch as the number 5 spot for this team?
I don't think they wanted to, but when you look at how the 2024 season transpired, I don't think it was necessarily the worst thing to have Yariel Rodriguez get some MLB experience, throw in these MLB games, because obviously 2024 did not amount to anything. So would I have rather Yariel Rodriguez pitched in AAA the entire time, probably build up that confidence and some of that stamina as well. Didn't pitch in 2023 whatsoever. We weren't expecting Yariel Rodriguez to come in and be the ace of this team. We weren't even expecting him to be in a starting rotation spot on this team throughout 2024. We thought at some point comes up for the bullpen. When they got him last season, they said they wanted to work him out as a starter. Well, as soon as you heard that, you're thinking AAA for a good portion of the season. So I think it was one of those things that you saw some pitchers go down. You had some injuries, and you had Yariel Rodriguez just in case there was an injury like that. You didn't expect, again, Kevin Gausman to be injured in spring training. Jordan Romano, Erik Swanson, not as much of an impact on him, but they didn't expect all of these pitching injuries necessarily and have to rely on Yariel Rodriguez down the stretch. Obviously, Alek Manoah still here in this scenario. Alek Manoah was expected to be, again, a pitcher, not necessarily your ace, but was expected to be in that rotation. So with Yariel Rodriguez, all I was really looking for was some flashes, was some things that he did in Japan in 2022. Again, the lower ERA. The walk rate for him has never been a strong point with Yariel, so that's one thing. If he's going to work on anything, it's just get that walk rate down when you're walking 4.5, 5 guys per 9. That's not exactly what you want. You don't want to be giving a lot of free bases out at the major league level. And it comes down to Yariel Rodriguez. A lot of it is the command. You saw Yariel Rodriguez miss. It was missing a lot over the plate, but you also saw him have some sequences where he looked unbelievable, and he looked like he could have been one of those guys that could be a third rotation arm, a second rotation arm in your starting rotation. So to answer your question, I guess, not exactly the upbringing you want Yariel Rodriguez to have, but I'm not taking anything bad away from it necessarily. Like, it's not his fault that he had to get thrown into this starting rotation role. I liked in some instances, what he did at the major league level, but obviously there is a lot of things that he can clean up to continue his career.
Yeah, and I think we all saw. We saw the command issues, and that wasn't news to anybody. We knew coming over that he wasn't going to be the pitcher that, was dotting zones, whatever. He was going to have some nasty stuff that was going to break, that was going to mess with some guys, and that's what you had to hope for. And you just have to hope the misses didn't kill you. And in some flashes, you're right, that's exactly what happened. he was absolutely breaking guys. But then, yeah, he would leave that pitch over the middle that would kill him. And or the walks would get away from him and just screw the inning. So it's a tough one with Yariel Rodriguez, I guess. I guess, Carter, let's get into our grades here, because the grade is sort of, I think justified by the actions of this year. For me, it's a C-, because I would have liked to see more out of him, but my intention with him going into the season wasn't to be a starter for this Toronto Blue Jays team in 2025. I expected him to maybe have some bullpen outings at best. And then, like you said, the flashes were there. Did it all come together? No. I think he can be better than a C-. I think he will be better than a C-. But for right now, where my expectations were to compare it to what he got, it's tough. It would either be a C or a C-. But I went to a C- just because the stats aren't great.
Yeah, that's fair. If you look at Yariel Rodriguez from a statistical standpoint, there's not a ton that's going to jump off the page for you like that. His hard hit rate's a little bit down. Not great bat to ball numbers for opposing hitters against Yariel. So again, there are some things that you can take with some positives. Again, there's a bunch of things that you can take with some negatives. But when we come back to these rankings, a lot of it is expectation. What did we expect Yariel Rodriguez to do on the Toronto Blue Jays? Every time he came into pitch, maybe again, one or two times that didn't have his stuff necessarily, but as your fifth rotation arm, you want to give your team a chance to win baseball games. When Yariel Rodriguez was in, whether it was only, again, 4 innings, maybe 5 innings at the top of it, sometimes you get 3 2/3, but a lot of those times you did get a game where you had a chance to win when Yariel Rodriguez was pitching in that game. Didn't expect him to be the ace of the team, expect him to come out of the bullpen at best. So for me, with expectations, I'm going to give this guy a B-. I like what he did last season. Again, you kind of wanted him to build on some stuff, who had some injury troubles, did not have consistency, which again could be a red flag for the future. But from what Yariel Rodriguez did, when you see his slider, you see the fastball velocity, you see what he can do at the major league level. Again, having a full year under Pete Walker, a full year with this pitching staff. Again, still a fairly young player, still got 4 more years on his contract. I don't think it's fair to say that Yariel Rodriguez was worse than expectations whatsoever. So I got Yariel Rodriguez as a B-, and hopefully going to be an integral piece to the Toronto Blue Jays pitching staff in 2025.
Yeah, and sort of when I give the C- here, I think it is more so situational as well. I think the situation screwed him. I think that, he wasn't put out in the best of times. Yes, he did give his team chances to win. He wasn't electric. He wasn't outstanding. He didn't blow me away. It's sort of the Yariel Rodriguez that I expected in year 1 of his contract with the Toronto Blue Jays after having a year off. Did I expect him to? But I expected him to still be good. And I think we saw glimpses of good in what he can be. You're right. But I think with the situation, how everything was handled around Yariel Rodriguez, that's why I'm going C-. But I totally understand your B- as well, just from an expectational standpoint.
And expectation is going to be an interesting name being thrown around Yariel Rodriguez next season, because what is the expectation going to be for Yariel Rodriguez? Is he going to be a starting pitcher? Is he going to be out of the bullpen? Is he going to be a long reliever? Is he going to be one of the high leverage arms? There's a lot, again, when we talk about the Toronto Blue Jays, there's a lot of uncertainty with this offseason, but more than ever, I think everything is going to be cleared up with the direction of this team, how confident we can be with the front office and management going forward, and just will the team actually have a chance to compete in 2025? We've heard a lot about this. We've heard a lot about Ross Atkins saying, we're going to make the proper moves. We're going to bring in guys that will give this team an ability to compete in 2025. We just got to wait for him to either do that or not do that, and have the Toronto Blue Jays fans raise their pitchforks even higher than they already were with this guy being in the hot seat, to say the least, among Toronto Blue Jays fans.
Expectations. That might be the word of the year for 2025, ladies and gentlemen, if you are Toronto Blue Jays fans, because what are the expectations, Carter? That is a perfect line, because I think we're all a little confused right now. We're not sure what this team should be. We're not sure if they're going to do the things we think or know they should do. Yeah, expectations, Carter. I like that. This might become the expectation podcast from now on. Anyway, we'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. We got some MLB news, some Toronto Blue Jays news, all of that to catch you guys up on this Wednesday episode. Stick with us. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. I'm telling you guys, the bonus bets are where it's at. get them. It's free money. You can bet them on anything. Try to build that back up. It's perfect. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. The live games, where the money's at. I'm telling you guys, try out the live games when the game's going on. See who's doing well. Place a couple bucks on them. Instead of trying to guess beforehand, maybe see who's doing it. What is it tracking like? Just my opinion. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, Carter, getting into some Blue Jays / MLB news here for the third segment as we do. We try to keep you guys up to date on stuff going on around the league, but also within the clubhouse. Carter, let's start here. I think the big one that, everybody's probably seen at this point, Cody Bellinger is going to be, drum roll, we don't have one? Okay, New York Yankee. He's going to be a Yankee. How do you feel?
I don't know how to feel, honestly. It's definitely not Juan Soto being in the pinstripe, so I don't think that we can complain about that necessarily. A weird trade. A weird trade when you just look at the transaction, you look for what was obviously brought back to Chicago Cubs. A lot of their fans aren't happy, especially when they got a guy like Kyle Tucker. You think, maybe Cody Bellinger could be there to pair with a guy like Kyle Tucker, but obviously they don't want to pay out both of those salaries, so they trade him to the New York Yankees. The Yankees obviously sending cash back. I think it was $5 million. So that right there just shows it's kind of like a contract dump a little bit in this situation. I don't think Cody Bellinger is going to be that good next year. So I kind of like it for the Toronto Blue Jays in that sense. But I think the Toronto Blue Jays have a lot of other things to worry about rather than Cody Bellinger's success for the 2025 season. One thing I will say that I am a little bit jealous of is that you look at the Red Sox, you look at the Yankees, not as much the Rays. I mean, the Rays. You look at the Orioles. You look at these teams, they're making a lot of moves. They're making a lot of transactions. The Toronto Blue Jays have made 2 transactions. One of them just super random and weird, obviously, the Andres Jimenez one. Just, again, for the direction of the team, just doesn't make sense whatsoever. And you get a familiar face back with Yimi Garcia. So in that sense, just looking at the amount of transactions, the amount of things that other teams are doing, definitely have a little bit of envy there. But I think it's probably better off right now. The Toronto Blue Jays haven't made a million transactions. That just gives Ross Atkins more and more opportunity to make the wrong moves.
Yeah, man, I am worried. I am worried about this. Am I worried about the Cody Bellinger situation? Not a whole lot. I don't really care. I'm sort of on the same page as you where Cody Bellinger hasn't been the Cody Bellinger that we all have in our heads, I think. Like, I think back to a couple of years ago, and I thought of Cody Bellinger as the next coming of Christ almost, but not so much the case. So this doesn't really worry me. Again, I am sort of in the same boat as you where I wish the Blue Jays were making transactions and that we could be excited about some of them. But it's sort of the double-edged sword because we make a transaction and then we're like, why are we making this transaction? And it always comes back to that. Does it make sense? We'll have to wait and see, I guess. Again, at the end of the day, the Pittsburgh Pirates now have Spencer Horwitz, which is just completely, it's going to be so weird to see him in the black and yellow, but it is what it is. Carter, what else is going on around the MLB?
We have the Jeffrey Springs trade that I don't think we talked about on this podcast. Jeffrey Springs going to the Oakland Athletics. Just, again, it's weird how they're making transactions all of a sudden after doing a whole lot of nothing when they were at the Coliseum. But, the Rays send Jacob Lopez and Jeffrey Springs. They get a bunch of different prospects, stuff like that back. Just more of a Rays move. Just never really seemingly going out to pay any players. So we always talk about how, again, we're in a division with the Baltimore Orioles, Red Sox, and Yankees, but we could be the Tampa Bay Rays. So I guess there is a little bit of a positive there. But if you're the Tampa Bay Rays, you usually find diamonds in the rough. You can turn around bullpen arms like it's absolutely nothing. And your prospect system normally is pretty good. So out of all the teams right now in the AL East, when you look at the Jays, like it's tough looking around, across the table for the direction, just overall how some teams are looking compared to the Toronto Blue Jays right now.
Yeah, well, and that's what we have to remember, right? But I think, we say that and then we're a bottom 7 team in the league and we're wondering what happened. Well, you got to make moves. You got to make the right moves. And I know we're going to, say that until we're blue in the face here. But do you trust Ross Atkins? I don't know. I don't know how you can. I still am iffy on it. I can't trust him. I know a lot of you guys in the comments can't trust him. But you're right. At least we're not the Rays. I mean, I just think and sometimes go and look at Locked On Rays and I'm like, oh God, I feel bad for this guy. A little shot there, but it's okay. We're all, under the same umbrella here. So he won't take it to heart, I don't think.
See, well, like when you talk about the Rays, like how much expectation do they really have? I think that's where in Toronto Blue Jays land we have it so uniquely right now, because we do have, like, we could be a top 8 team in the league next year, or we could be a bottom 5 team in the league next season. And even when the Toronto Blue Jays make a move that can benefit the organization, fans still aren't happy. And they make a ton of moves, which never happens. I don't think fans would be happy then, because you look at the players that Ross Atkins would be signing, probably wouldn't work out too well. And then you have the flip side where he kind of does this, where he makes 1 or 2 bigger moves, and then you don't get anything. It leaves you thinking, are we gonna have a offseason like every single other offseason where he makes a move, you think, oh, that's a decent start, but what else? And then nothing else happens. So it's gonna be an interesting offseason. I'm excited for it, but I'm also terrified just because of who is at the helm of this offseason. But I'm just looking for answers. I think a lot of other Toronto Blue Jays fans are looking for answers as well. At the very least, at the end of this offseason, we're going to get our answers for the 2025 season and honestly, the Toronto Blue Jays' future.
Yeah, we will. Yep, and that's what's terrifying. I think it all hangs in the balance here in Toronto Blue Jays land for 2025. 2025 will dictate how the next 5 years go, and that's scary to think about. Are we going to be watching a really terrible team play for the next 5 years? Possibly. It's scary. We'll see what Ross has up his sleeve. He's got to do something. Carter, besides all that, to end things off, do you have anything else? Is there anything going on in the Blue Jays' own house right now?
Yeah, I have one thing. It's about two they're really going to be game-changing players, obviously, for the Toronto Blue Jays in 2025. And it's Leo Jimenez and it's Hagen Danner. And these are 2 players that were rewarded with an additional option year because of their injury history. So Hagen Danner, for me, I don't care. Like, if he could have had that extra option year or not. Hagen Danner, not good. Not a good baseball player. Leo Jimenez, this one is a little bit intriguing. I don't think he's going to be the greatest baseball player of all time. This is a guy that if you waived him, he was going to get picked up immediately. It would have been a snap of the fingers, and he would have been on another team. So it is nice with Leo, at least, that if there is some injury troubles, if you do want to, again, maybe trade him in a move, maybe, again, give him some more playing time, maybe leave him in AAA, and he continues to work on what he has been doing and progress. Maybe he's, at worst case, a trade chip that you can flip later on down the line, or maybe, who knows, with the direction the Blue Jays are going with all the uncertainty, maybe he's a guy that could play for the Blue Jays in 2026. We'll see if we get there. I hope not. Nothing against Leo Jimenez, just more so against, obviously, the Toronto Blue Jays. But yeah, just, I guess, to leave it off, just thank you for the support recently. The likes, comments, subscriptions, everything has been much appreciated. Slowly getting closer and closer to that spring training, to when pitchers and catchers report, to when every single other player reports, which, again, I don't know if I'm excited for or I'm terrified for, but it will outline the picture of the vague and musky Toronto Blue Jays season to come.
As always, guys, thank you for watching. As Carter said, if you want to we always appreciate you guys making us your first listen. If you want to find a second listen, go check out Locked On MLB with host Paul Sullivan. Sully, great guy over there, runs a great show. Check him out. As always, hit the subscribe button if you're new here or you're listening anywhere else. Make sure you head over to that YouTube page and hit that subscribe button. Have a good Wednesday. Again, we are Monday, Wednesday, and Friday until the pitchers and catchers report. Have a good Wednesday, and we'll see you guys on Friday.